sync with us. And it's a very high privilege that he gives to us. Because God, through others, has told us about redemption. And how we can be saved. And I'm hoping and praying that all of you know how to be saved. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believed in him, Jesus Christ, will not perish but have eternal life. And that's a wonderful thing. And that's a joyful thing that we talked about all the time. And now you have the privilege to partner with God. We didn't die for their sins. God somehow could have used another method to tell everyone about his Son dying on the cross for their sins. But God chose to partner with us so that we can be a part of this wonderful experience of sharing with people about there's a way to be saved for their sins. And I used the example last week, and I'll use it all the time. We have a lot of people on our cancer list, and if we had the cure for cancer, boy, we'd be sharing that pill to everyone, and everyone would be happy, and it would be a wonderful thing. But even if we did that, those people, and I pray everyone on our list is cured physically. But above that, everyone on that list and everyone everywhere in the world needs to be cured spiritually. Even if they're cured from their cancer, they still need to be cured of their sin. And the good news is God has given us the cure for that sin. God has given us the opportunity to enter into a privileged partnership with him and work with him in getting that word out. And that's what I'm saying. If us as a church come and say, I'm in a partnership with God. The reason churches don't grow or be who they are supposed to be is not God's fault. We said God wants the church to grow. I will build my church, God says. But he wants to partner with us. So last week, one of the key aspects that helps us with that is the next slide there, Bob, is that this whole idea, and we use the word a lot, we pray and we say Lord. And we talk about that, Lord isn't really the name of God. Lord is a title, and it was common back then, and it actually means master, and we talked about the whole master and slave or servant idea. And in today's world, maybe an easier way for people to swallow this, saying, instead of saying, Lord, God, it would be like, God, you're the boss. And if you're God, you're the boss, I can tell you my opinion, but really, God, what you say is what goes. I'm yours, God. And there's even a Bible verse, and there's a million Bible verses, but this one I think really puts it in a different way that maybe we haven't looked at it before. This is from Galatians chapter 2, verses 20. This is Paul speaking to the Galatian church. I have been crucified with Christ. Now, not literally yet. Paul got his head chopped off. But I have been crucified with Christ, meaning when Christ died, his sins were taken care of. And he's saying that it is no longer I who live. So he's saying, I'm not going to my self-centered, it's not me who's most important. He says, it's but Christ who lives in me. And it's that great idea. Yeah, he's saying, it's not about me anymore, it's about God. God living in me. God, I'm yours. God, what will you have me do? God, you're my boss. And Paul continued to say, and the life I live now in my flesh, how am I going to live it? I'm going to live it by faith in the Son of God. And why would you do this? Why would we want a master? Why would we want a boss? Well, this boss, this master of yours, loved you so much that he died and gave his life for you. And I'm not sure if anybody else did that for you. And that's a good reason to make him, he's a wonderful boss. And we talked about the other week, we won't go into it, but everyone has a master, whether it's yourself, whether it's your money, whether it's your job, whatever it is, make Jesus your master. Because he said you can't serve two masters. You can only have one master. And I always just like to throw in there because sometimes it can be saying Lord, saying master, saying boss means you, and Jesus put it another way. He said, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. And when you get up, it's like, you're always talking about obeying. Well, if we go back to that great commission, it said, go and make disciples, teaching them to obey all that I've taught you. And so really, the greatest show of love is obedience. And again, it doesn't have to be like, It's more, as we talk about, like in marriage. It's the love of joy, of like, there's nothing else I want to do than to please the one who I love. So if we move on, we're going to get to Philippians. This one's a little longer, but this is Paul again speaking, but I think it has a good part of it. He says, chapter 2, therefore, my beloved. Paul speaking to the church, and he had many reasons to be in love with this church. It was a great church. It did a lot for him, and it helped him out in a lot. That's what we often talk about. This is the book of joy. Therefore, my beloved, just as you have always obeyed me, meaning Paul instructed them as a church, and he's commending them for it, not only in my presence, but you even obeyed me more when I wasn't there. Now, this gets a little controversial for some people who jump over every little word. Paul tells them to work out your salvation. Now, I didn't say to work on your salvation. He didn't say to work for your salvation. They already have their salvation. What he's saying here is when he says work out your salvation, he's saying you're saved. Now, what are you going to do with it? Well, he tells them, work it out. For it is God who is at work in you. Let God work through you, enabling you to will and to work for God's good pleasure. And, we're going to get into it about what can we do as a church if we want to grow, if we want to do something. And, it's inevitable. Somebody's going to say, well, Ed, maybe we should have some better music than Ed playing guitar. Me. And I'm amen. And somebody said, well, I want the old church hits. And we all have our preference. But in maturity, sometimes maturity is saying, I want the church to grow. I enjoy that music, and I will always do it. But maybe there may be a different music or some of that. Now, maybe not all of it, but maybe a blend of that other music might have other people come and be disciples. And I set that up to say this next part in the next slide. Because some people are like, I don't like what our church is becoming. They could... go to the next one there, Bob. I'm sorry. Okay. Do all things with what? Without murmuring and arguing. Now, we can discuss, and we should discuss, and we should debate, we should speak in love, but we should always, God puts ideas in, and we need to talk, and we need to work through things, but we don't want to murmur and argue and complain. And it says, why? So that you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation. Wow. It almost sounds like he's talking about our times. But maybe in a sinful world, there's always crooked and perverse. And maybe we've taken that to a whole other level. Because 10 years ago, you just said, it can't get any worse. And I was telling people, don't ever say it can't get any worse. And you're like, no, nothing can get worse than it is now. Well, I hope it doesn't get worse, but it always seems to. Without blemish in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation in which you shine like stars in the world. It is by your holding fast onto the words of life, the Bible, that I can boast on the day that I did not run in vain or labor. All right, so we started today with the G.R.O.W, and I'm not sure when we started calling them dots. Back in my day, we called them periods. Okay, so anyway, that was our sermon title, G.R.O.W, because they stand for something. And it's not nothing new that I came up with. It's an old something. I see some German guy came up with. It can be applied to everything, but I think it applies to us today. And I think there's biblical aspects to it. It's a grow, and I'm not sure if you can see it or not there, but the G stands for goal. The R stands for the reality. The O stands for option. And the W stands for way forward. Now, there's several other variations you might see on the internet, but that's the one we're going with today, or at least I'm going with it. You can get your own. But so the first question I would have for you, Richmond United Methodist Church, what is our goal? And some people say, like, what? And I always say, somebody say, well, I don't want to be a church of 300 people. And I'm like, I agree with you. I think what size do we want to be? Well, better yet, what size do you think God would want our church to be? 20? Some of you are going to have to leave. No, you know I'm being silly. You know, is it 30? I want us to pick don't shout, but pick a specific number. Do you want us to be a church of 40 regulars, 50 regulars? Do you want 2 services again? I don't know, but I think the prayer that we'll talk about at the end is you pray to God, God, what would you have our church to be? And I think sometimes a prayer, you say, well, God, whatever you want it to be, but I think sometimes in his talking with us in prayer, you pick a specific number, because I'm being bold about it. I want to pray about it. I got a number in my head. I'm going to tell you right now. And not that the prayer can't change. I'm praying, God, give us 50 regulars. I know we can say, but I want 50 people here on an average, on a basis. That's the prayer I'm going for this whole next year. So you can say, no, it should be 45, Pastor Andy. And that's okay. You pray your prayer, I'm going to pray my prayer. We'll see which prayer God answers. Okay? And that's okay. That's part of the fun. So what is your goal? Now, again, we can put this on your personal basis. What is your goal spiritually? I wish I prayed more every day. I wish I read the Bible more day. You know, I don't know what it is. I wish I helped people more. I don't know. But what is your goal? That's where we'll start. That's a good place to start. Think of this grow as a journey. When you're on a journey, I know where I was, and I had to call Bob and tell Bob, hey, Bob, here's where I am. You know? And Bob's like, well, how am I going to get there? And that's the whole growth thing. You know, G is where you are. R is the reality. You know, let's see what journey is. Where are you going? That's the goal. Where are you? That's my reality. I'm by the Forks Recycling Center. Anybody ever hear that? That's where my car is. That's my reality. So if we're speaking about this reality, then what's my options? And Bob is going to come pick me up. He has various routes that he can go. Now, can he take them all? Well, in a sense he can, but he's got to pick one. Now, maybe you let the software pick it for you, and, you know, usually that works out. Sometimes it doesn't. But either way, so look at this as a journey about where are you going, where are you, what different routes you can take, and which is the way forward. So we're talking about what's our goal. The next part is what's our reality. And in our reality, and again, you can do this on a personal level, but I'm going to come to it as a church level. As a reality, if we continue to do exactly what we're doing today, and there's nothing wrong with what we are doing today, I love our worship service, I love everyone here, but if we continue to do it and don't change anything, where are we in 10 years? Where are we in 20 years? And I often say we've been given a torch. You know, Richmond Church has been here for a long time. And is it our job, if God so says He wants to build a church, is it our job to hand off that torch? Or you can sit there and say, I don't care, it ain't my problem. You know, let the next generation figure it out. Let the people who are left after me in 20 years figure it out. Well, that's an answer, but I'm not sure if that's the answer that God would have you want to give. So again, what's our reality? Where are we going to be in 5, 10, 20 years? And what's God has given, we're to be, the Bible word is stewardship. But I like to use just the word, you're managers. God has given us gifts. This church is a gift. He's given you many gifts, many blessings. One day you're going to be accountable to God. What did you do with all that He's given us? There's a parable that relates to that. Don't be the one guy that said, I buried it all. I didn't use my gifts for what the Master gave me.